Hello and welcome everyone. Thanks for joining our webinar today. My name is Jerome and welcome to the first webinar of a set of 3 project webcast series jointly hosted by pCubed and Microsoft. Over the next hour, I will be sharing practical advice for selecting and implementing great software for organizations that are just starting out on their respective project and portfolio management journeys. But before we get started, let's do a quick introduction. As I said, my name is Jerome. I've been working and playing with Project Online for just over 6 years now. I work out of the UK for an organization called pCubed. Most of that time has been spent on various client sites, either leading or supporting the delivery of pragmatic business solutions to said clients. So let's have a quick look at the next slide, which does give an overview of pCubed. We're the largest global management consulting firm uniquely focused on project, portfolio and change management. We've delivered business transformation and embedded innovation for half of the Fortune 100 since 1994. We operate in Europe, North America, Asia and Australia. We have a clear understanding of technical and business challenges. We've delivered circa 1,000 EPM implementations globally, from tens to many thousands of users across all business sectors. The one thing I did want to touch on this slide was our Microsoft relationship. This is a special one. pCubed had been a Microsoft global partner for just over 12 years, delivering some of the largest EPM solutions globally. We've been both winner and finalists of the Microsoft Partner of the Year Awards, and we are presently a managed partner in project and portfolio management. As a managed partner, we're better equipped than any other company to help our clients navigate the vast structure that is the Microsoft Corporation. This goes well beyond simply being up to date on policies and products. It also means our clients' projects will run more quickly and smoothly because we have a direct line to support channels. We have direct access to high-level technical resources who are invested in ensuring that we're well equipped to help our clients leverage their Microsoft technology stack. So with the formalities out of the way, this slide is a description that you would have seen for this webcast. That's just to make sure you're at the right place, and hopefully you're eager to find out how technology can be best leveraged to optimize your project portfolio. If there is only one reason for this presentation, that is to share best practices. Now, I don't pontificate that I found the one true way. Rather, this presentation should be viewed as a practical advice for selecting and implementing great software by those who've done it and, most importantly, are still innovating. The knowledge I intend to share is not an end-to-end guidance for everyone, although it can be used as a high-level best practice for most organizations. To try and make it easier to digest, I've arranged these best practices into sections. Each section represents a step along the journey to your PPM future state. So in this presentation, very roughly, I'll be covering an overview where we will cover an introduction to EPPM, and how to assess if your organization is ready for such a solution. We'll be touching on how to build your business case for the solution and how to go about selecting the right and appropriate solution for your organization. We'll also be covering deploying, which will cover key resources that are available to help you get there, as well as critical success factors and how to get the most out of your solution. And then finally, we'll be wrapping it up with looking towards the future and how to get the most out of your solution. So without further ado, let's go over to part 1, which is overview and readiness assessment. Now, organizations need to react quickly to fluctuating markets, changing project and program conditions. They also need to meet the demand for visibility and information that can be acted on across distributed project teams. Regardless of the exact nature of your PMO, teams need to be empowered to work better, smarter, and ultimately faster. Now, whether that's through cloud technologies or agile processes within a PPM framework, that's really up for you to decide. But one thing is clear, the vanguard PMOs are leading the pack in innovation. and digital transformation, because they're willing to try or intermingle methodologies supported with a centralized tool set. It's important that your teams have the right tools to get the work done. But, and this is important, if a variety of tools are being used because there's a lack of alignment to technology, that can be just as inefficient as manual processes and spreadsheets. Now, whether you're working in a centralized or departmental PMO, it's important that your organization as a whole is working with the same technology. That way, everyone can gain visibility into programs, projects, and portfolios to reduce overlap and keep everyone on the same page. Now, a winning strategy for enterprise project and portfolio management is to establish both long and short-term goals with regards to strategy, research the methodologies that best fit your organization, and then when necessary, go out and purchase the tools that will help you meet your organization's goals. The key is finding a solution that works from a cultural as well as a technological perspective within your organization. The purpose of this presentation is then to provide a basic strategy for helping your organization prepare for the selection, deployment, and support of that solution. Now, as denizens of the technology industry, we live in a world rife with three-letter acronyms. EPM, PPM, IIPA, APM, these are just the tip of the iceberg. Now, the truth is, acronyms are a little bit dull. But the way that technology behind these acronyms is changing project management is actually pretty interesting. A few years ago, the acronym EPM was a hot commodity and pretty much considered the way to go. For most modern organizations to become effective, it was not enough to just schedule the project. Management had to extend the project management concept to the entire organization. One of the most productive byproducts of this era was the shift beyond person-by-person project scheduling to collaborative project team management. And one of the most exciting trends in the last couple of years has been towards project and portfolio management, i.e. PPM. With this new movement, we've seen PPM pop up as a new industry within the EPM space in a way that I think is actually very exciting. Whereas EPM is designed to facilitate day-to-day project delivery and project management, PPM is designed to handle the overarching project, program, or portfolio management environment, including current and future needs and demands on resources. So to summarize, the elevator talk would probably go something like this. If EPM is about doing projects right, PPM is about doing the right projects. Now, to make things a little bit easier for us going forward, or at least for myself, I'm going to be referring to the solution as an EPPM solution for the rest of the presentation. Okay, when does an organization require a PPM solution? So if you cast your eye to the bottom of this page on this slide, I've taken the liberty of listing some of the common challenges that EPPM tools address, and I wanted to take a minute just to talk to some of them. So it may be that you have a lack of overview in your organization. Are disparate projects, demands, resources, portfolios, and time management activities leading to a lack of accountability and inefficient business processes? Would it maybe be helpful if you had a summary view of all your programs and projects that allowed you to drill down into any issue? There may potentially be poor control in your business. Are initiatives moving off in their own direction with dependencies suddenly causing problems, or projects ending up competing for the same resources? Would it maybe be helpful if you had a means of bringing your programs and projects together in a way that enables them to collaborate better, as well as see and understand dependencies and give you visibility of how they're progressing? Do you have poor systems and processes? Are you using lots of different systems that need manual updating and effort? Would it be helpful if you had a single system that handled everything from scheduling, risk management, issue control, and reporting? Is there possibly a lack of visibility in your organization? Are you not getting visibility of what's happening on your programs until things have gone wrong? Is that lack making it difficult to get work done or make the right decisions? Would it be helpful if you had a consistent way of seeing the summary and detailed information of your projects that's based on a single source of data and allows you to compare programs and projects? Do you have poor reporting? This is a pretty common one, and is most of that static data living in spreadsheets? Would it be helpful if you had a way of actually accessing up-to-the-minute information at a summary and detailed level appropriate to the audience member? Do you happen to have poor prioritization within your business? Based on the status of your project portfolio today, are you able to see the road ahead and to make the right decisions for tomorrow? The question is, would it be helpful if you had a tried and tested way of getting agreement to what programs and projects should be running and managing any necessary changes along the way? Then I suppose the other kind of key one is poor resource management. Very often programs, projects are all competing for the same resources, and it's hard to understand how to best allocate them across the portfolio. Would it be helpful if you had a way of actually seeing your resource capacity for your organization against the demand from all your programs and projects based on their current up-to-date plans, which would then in turn allow you to make judgments based on the relative priority of those projects or programs? So I suppose given the challenges faced, it's not surprising an EPPM tool quickly becomes the backbone of an organization's support structure for PPM. As such, it should support individual projects and programs as well as larger enterprise and allow for cradle-to-grave tracking of projects and enable project-driven organizations to manage their programs and projects intelligently, from small all the way to large and complex. Right. Before you go out and actually buy your shiny new tool, you should probably ask yourself if your company is actually ready to implement one. A successful EPPM implementation begins by identifying and understanding clearly defined goals, carefully planning the strategy to obtain those goals, and then developing a vision to complete the goals through controlled execution. Before you finalize your business case to secure funding, you should be able to answer a simple list of questions. Number one, are your PM practices institutionalized? And how do you actually know? If you don't have the same sort of documented methodology and don't have the evidence reflecting compliance with those practices, why do you actually think that introducing a tool is going to make any difference? Two, do you have sustainable executive sponsorship and resource management commitment? And how do you know? If you've been trying to sell these stakeholder groups on the benefits of adopting a tool, how do you know they're sufficiently bought in? Everybody wants to have a pretty portfolio health dashboard and a detailed view into staff capacity and allocation. But the thing is, a lot of effort on the part of mid and senior managers is required to ensure that accurate and complete data is being entered by project teams. Three, can you confirm that the project data is reliable? You won't make good decisions based on bad information. This is where the enterprise level project management tools really earn their keep. Gathering data in such a way that it can be put into context and become information is where the software reigns supreme. How long will each project take? How much will it cost? Etc., etc. Being able to view the most salient information on each and every project allows executives to compare apples to apples and weigh the relative benefits of apples versus oranges. Number four, who's actually going to support the tool past initial rollout? And will you have sufficient funding for these resources? Regardless of whether a solution is installed on site or subscribed to over the internet, you still need internal staffing to provide application support to your end users. 5, how are you going to sell it to the primary end users? How are you going to get their buy-in, and will you be reducing or at least not increasing the administrative work for these users? 6, do you know what projects already exist in your organization? Ask yourself the question, what's in the portfolio? Many companies don't actually know. An inventory of all the initiatives competing for resources is a baseline requirement to even begin portfolio management. Counting projects is a first step towards deriving value from portfolio management, because certain realities are quickly revealed. If you schedule 130% of your human resources to projects, for example, a lot of things will not get done, and valuable people will probably quit or go crazy. Even this basic step surfaces redundancies and dead issues, allowing a EPPM initiative to create value almost immediately. And then 7, do you have the resources available to work on the project? Another part of the inventory process should be literally counting heads. Who are the project managers? Surprisingly, many large companies struggle to identify the PM resources. For some companies, the scarcest resource isn't money, but project managers. A critical factor in project selection thus becomes, do we actually have a project manager who can manage this project? Ideally, other roles that need to form part of the project team are the sponsor, trainer, tester, business analyst, as well as process owners. And then finally, an implementation partner, the technical folk. Now, if you can't conclusively answer yes to all of these questions and have the data to back up this confidence, then it might actually be advisable for you to wait until you do, or at least make it part of the project. Otherwise, the next step is to choose the right solution for your organization. So let's move on to building the business case for your solution. Now, whatever the drivers are to implement a solution for your organization, before investing in a EPPM tool, you will almost certainly be asked to provide a business case for said investment. And developing a business justification and ROI model for your solution is an important step, because once the main business drivers have been identified, you can progress. This process ensures executives have a way to measure the benefits of a new solution and can evaluate the ROI of the required investment. Presenting a compelling business case can also help secure budget approval. Typical challenges I found when clients try to build a business case for a EPPM solution for the first time are many business cases hinge on subjective data. Many customers don't have a baseline for comparison, and very often their current situation is ad hoc and confused. Now, the good news is that there are some simple examples that can be used to move towards objectivity, which I will try and cover off in the next few slides. The other good news is that the business case for investing in a EPPM tool is really not that much different to any other business case, because it requires you to clearly explain the benefits that will be realized when the tool set is fully implemented, the cost of the implementation, and the return on investment and payback period. Now, benefits definition and benefits management are only truly effective when the benefits are measurable. And this means that in order to justify the investment in EPPM tools, you will need to measure the way your organization is currently working. For example, if you're expecting to reduce the time and hence the cost of preparing monthly management reports, then you will need to measure your current preparation time and cost, and to define a target time and cost for the future. Most EPPM tool implementations also involve improvements to the way projects, programs, and portfolios are run. Therefore, it is important to recognize that benefits may be attributable to changes in process as well as changes in toolset. Broadly speaking, there are 3 types of benefits that need to be considered. 1, direct cost savings, 2, tangible benefits, and 3, intangible benefits. So, if we look at direct cost savings, each organization has its own reasons for implementing these tools and its own set of expected benefits and operating costs. This slide tries to give an indication of typical direct cost savings which can be attributed to the use of a EPPM solution, all of which are then measurable. If we look at tangible benefits, there are obviously many potential tangible benefits that can be attributed to the introduction of such a tool, as is illustrated in the table. However, it can sometimes be a little bit challenging to establish good, accurate, repeatable measures for some of these. If we look at intangible benefits, these are the benefits that do not have a directly attributable financial value. However, often with some creative and a bit of careful thinking, it is possible to attribute financial figures to intangible benefits. Below are some typical intangible benefits from the implementation of EPPM solutions. Right, so the next consideration are the costs of implementing your software, which covers people, process, and technology. The table in this slide itemizes the typical cost items for implementing EPPM software. Obviously, the actual cost will vary from solution to solution and be dependent on the scale and size of your deployment. Then finally, you have to consider your ROI. As companies worldwide have tightened purse strings, increased emphasis has been placed on evaluating spending, internal processes, and implemented solutions. Subsequently, companies are more intently focusing on the return on investment that various tools bring to their organizations to justify their continued use. A classic return on investment analysis looks at the costs versus the benefits and how long it will take to realize the benefits. Using the information gathered from assessing the benefits and the costs in your organization, the following table can help you build the ROI case. According to Gartner, if memory serves, EPPM solutions can bring to 150% to the table. So, the question is, how does all of this information amalgamate to determine the precise value that EPPM solutions bring in order for you to build the business case? Now, unfortunately, the truth is there's no easy answer to this. At the end of the day, you're going to have to look at your own challenges and benefits that the tool can bring to your organization. Now, this can be done in a number of ways. For instance, you could use a formula that adds value, that adds the solution's startup costs, i.e. the out-of-pocket and internal resources, as well as maintenance, i.e. internal and consulting support, and anything else incremental to enforce it. And then measure all of this against the cost savings and avoidances to the company. Another approach could be to take a qualitative approach when determining the value of the solution, by just simply defining a number of recognition events, such as integrated scheduling, or perhaps agreed upon templates, a single source of the truth for all data, etc., etc. The success of which would be measuring sticks to determine the value and the impact of the EPPM tool that had on the company. Okay, let's look at system selection criteria now. It's important to find the right tools to support business-driven EPPM for your organization, and to make sure that they help, not hinder, the process. Software should mirror your governance processes and drive standards and consistency that benefit every part of the organization. Now, fortunately for us, these solutions are already readily available on the market, but not so fortunately often under differently named offerings. Many of these EPPM and EPM and PPM solutions are essentially the same thing, but vendors use different names for them depending on the industry that they're trying to sell them to or how they're trying to market it. Your task as a buyer is to make sure that you choose the right solution with the right mix of capabilities that meet the current and future needs of your organization. Now, some basic capabilities I believe should be in any EPPM software tool suite are demand management capability, which should enable the capture of all requests in a central repository to enhance visibility. Portfolio analysis to help you prioritize projects and programs. 3, schedule management, which will give occasional and professional project managers the flexibility to create and edit schedules on their computer, desktop, device, or choice of tablets or smartphones. 4, resource management. The application should have a single resource pool to allow for global resource management and allows assignments to be made to both generic and real resources. It must allow for progress tracking and reporting either by time or work completed. It should have governance, allowing for roles and rules on how to approve and view information. Because governance provides, workflows across different life cycles and applies the appropriate controls throughout the life cycle of each project. The other thing it needs is collaboration to provide, managed, secure, real-time access to project artifacts for team members. The other thing it needs is near real-time data and historical data analysis. And this, I suppose, ties in a little bit with business intelligence and reporting, including things such as tailored reports, dashboards, and general business intelligence to look at the project and program data in many ways. I suppose a note on this is that very often this has to be tailored, though. Out-of-the-box reporting very seldom cuts the mustard. The other thing it needs is some form of financial management. The ideal EPPM software should offer a flexible infrastructure that at the very minimum helps standardize the collection of cost and benefit data for each request. PMO should be able to simply add a few custom fields to an online business case form to capture things like multi-year cost and benefit values. Another essential one is issue and risk management. The solution should have the ability to define a standard way to assess a risk for a new initiative. It should also standardize project risk and issue collection and management, and it should facilitate the resolution thereof. As an added bonus, I would probably also look for time and task management. An effective time and task management tool should have the following characteristics: easy to use interface, single source to report both working and non-working time, and the ability to capture projects, operations, and administrative time. Should you decide to go for a time and task management solution as well, make sure that it can support high use in short recurring time periods. Now, this is not an exhaustive list, but a pretty good set of features that should be provided by any solution worth its salt. And when selecting such a solution, organizations should use criteria based on identifying needs and organizational objectives, both for the present and the future. Now, when selecting a solution, many commercial tools can seem overwhelming at first, and that's just simply because of the large amount of functionality that they offer. In my experience, this often goes two ways when people are buying a solution. The first is to go for a off-the-shelf solution, and the second is to use professional services from a consultancy that has a track record in deploying and managing the solution. Now, in my experience, buying an off-the-shelf product as is can be a little bit less effective on its own than procuring specialist professional services to use a mixture of both commercial off-the-shelf software and then modifying it to fit exactly with your requirements. Off-the-shelf solutions are designed to be one-size-fits-all, which may not fit the unique needs of your business. Mixing in the use of professional services can ultimately be considered the most cost-effective approach, I think. If you go and you apply the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, the outside expert can work with the business to adopt the 80% of the solution that fits and then just really tailor that 20% of the solution that doesn't. An important consideration is that automating bad or non-existent processes simply makes your problems come at you faster. It's not surprising, what is actually quite surprising, how many organizations fall into the trap of thinking the tool is the whole solution. The usual excuse is that the tool already has best practices embedded, so why not just follow those? Remember, repurchasing software is just the beginning of having an EPPM solution. It is not the end. You still have to implement it, and with today's technology, it is possible to implement a system with less effort and fewer costs than ever before. But the ability to do it successfully without the proper planning is pretty unlikely. Now, There are a number of industry innovations that are addressing important business requirements to improve executive visibility, lower costs, mitigate risk, etc., etc. And one of the most important factors to consider when assessing a solution relates to the fundamental building blocks of the software, i.e. the technical architecture. These days, we have to divide our thinking based on our decision to go with on-prem or software as a service. Now, in the past, EPPM appeared to be exclusive to large organizations, and smaller companies could not support the infrastructure and did not have the resources to really have a EPPM solution. Now, the good news is that this is becoming much more achievable and is almost a non-issue now. Consulting does not need to be expensive. Both products and services have matured during implementations with larger clients, and therefore can now be leveraged by companies of all sizes, especially small to medium organizations. If you're considering on-premise installations, you have to think about what hardware to use, what are the hardware requirements for memory and CPUs. Will you use physical servers or virtual servers? Will you use dedicated servers or shared? What kinds of servers might be required? Will you need application ones? Will you need security servers? Will you need web servers? What about load balancing, disaster recovery, backups, etc., etc., etc.? The list just goes on. Once you've actually finished answering all of these questions, you'll then move on to installation, test, and in production environments, and then system health, and then monitoring once the system is up and running. So, in conclusion, when considering a on-prem versus a software as a service solution, you need to take into account the benefits and the costs. For on-premise solutions, it's important to know the upgrade policy, the support policy, and the overall total cost of ownership. Given the advantages of hosting a solution elsewhere, today's enterprises often opt for software as a service just because of the convenience, the flexibility, and the ability to easily scale and support remote and international teams. So it's no surprise that the cloud has really become a major trend in the industry that is causing many CIOs to go the SaaS first approach to investing, as opposed to investing in expensive software with a lot of upfront costs. Remember, I suppose, with the software as a service, deployment is still required. While the technology requirement that exists with on-prem goes away, the business requirements for planning and configuration still holds. Right, so I wanted to sort of take a couple of minutes just to review the Microsoft EPPM solution, my tool of choice. As a Microsoft certified PPM professional, I'm naturally a bit biased and a big advocate of the Microsoft PPM stack, especially if you're looking for an all-round solution that is pretty cost-effective. Microsoft have been invested in project management for, I think, a little bit over 2 decades now, with the first release in 1985. And since then, they've been innovating and setting project management industry trends with timely feature-rich releases. And over the years, they've transformed the project desktop application into a fully integrated, industry-leading end-to-end project and portfolio management solution. These days, Microsoft uses the term project and portfolio management to refer to a group of components that includes Microsoft Project Professional, i.e. the desktop application, Project Server, and Project Web App. It's also used for Project Online combined with Project for Office 365, which is Microsoft's Office 365 cloud offering that comes in the form of a subscription-based service. Now, both of these offerings are integrated into SharePoint, delivering a common collaboration and information platform available to everyone involved in a project. This provides a proven, centralized solution for successful enterprise-wide project and portfolio management. It offers a flexible end-to-end PPM platform used by organizations across a broad variety of industries to automate their primary PPM processes. The project and portfolio management functions in the solution help companies align vision and effort to prioritize initiatives, select optimal project portfolios, and ultimately deliver on their business strategy. It can really be used for all phases of a project, from gathering project ideas and requirements to project planning to execution and management. It allows your portfolio managers to have a high-level view of financial and resource management measures. Project managers can access standard project and program management methodologies, and it's also suitable for small or larger organizations that use multiple PPM tools but want to achieve a more cost-effective, unified solution. It suits companies that really place a lot of importance on a centralized project planning and management across multiple projects. They are likely to need functions such as centralized resource management, capacity planning, portfolio management, partially automated approval processes, as well as flexible and eye-catching reports using dashboards and cockpits, etc., etc. So, let's look at a couple of the benefits. Now, there are sort of a whole host of benefits depending on what functional capability is being leveraged or business scenarios are being addressed, all of which are just way too many to list here. But from a vendor perspective, the Microsoft PPM solution offers the following high-level benefits, at least in my view. One, it supports the journey from task to portfolio management. It allows you to report effectively on project, program, and portfolios. 3, enhanced communication within project teams. 4, you can improve everyday collaboration. 5, you can stay in control of your project changes. 6, you can discover and share project information. 7, you have the timesheets if you choose to use that, which can allow you to sort of, submit both project and non-project work. And then 9, unlike other project management tools, Project offers a complete desktop application for collaborative project management, including out-of-the-box reports that work seamlessly with SharePoint and Skype for Business. And Project probably still continues to be the de facto standard for desktop scheduling applications. And then I suppose finally, from a business or a CFO perspective, it has a affordable price point to help extend the solution and benefits throughout the organization. So with that being said, let's move on to the home stretch, which is deploying your solution. Now, regardless of whether you go the software as a service or on-prem route, you still need to select an implementation partner. Hopefully somebody with in-depth knowledge of the tool, project management, and business processes that will help you maximize the benefits for these tools. Now, for the purpose of this section, I'm going to assume that you've chosen Project Online as your solution of choice. Thus, a good place to start would be to choose a Microsoft Gold partner specializing in project and portfolio management. I'd also recommend asking if your partner has a Gold certification in PPM or if they only dabble in it. Now, and that's just because to qualify as a Microsoft PPM Gold partner, you must have at least 4 architects that passed 3 exams, and more importantly, the partner must provide at least 5 deployment references in the current technology. I'd also advise looking for a partner that has resources with business intelligence and SharePoint skills, competent backed up by competencies. Because partners with skills in BI can ultimately help you get the most out of your investment and satisfy the critical needs of high-level executives for bespoke dashboards and reports, regardless of the reporting medium. Partners with SharePoint skills have additional depth for SharePoint configuration, which, as I mentioned earlier, is the underlying base of Project Online. Their proven experience in taxonomy, workflow, web parts are among the many very useful SharePoint features that can add great value in achieving more benefits from your EPPM efforts. Now, when selecting the right outside expert, you should also consider the following factors. 1, do they have project and program portfolio management skills? As a consulting partner in Microsoft PPM, they should be able to demonstrate best practice and to best configure the tool set to support the customer's processes. Requires the consulting element to have a holistic view and be especially knowledgeable about software-enabled PMOs. Do they have experience in the latest technology stack is another consideration. Make sure that they have Project Online or Project Server 2016 or 2019 experience, depending on what year you're in. As the Microsoft PPM stack evolves, becoming more sophisticated and complex with every release, it is important, more important than ever, just to select a partner who is keeping up with the current technologies. 3, do they have resourcefulness and global reach? Whereas you might consider a local firm as being better suited to guide you through your implementation process, a consulting firm with multiple locations obviously has the advantage of breadth of experience. And then another element would be plain talk. The best expert will be able to lead an efficient requirements workshop to pull out and identify the range of issues, scope and requirements your organization faces in implementing EPPM. A masterful advisor will help you to rephrase the data gathered from the client's requirements workshop and confirm everybody's understanding of it without things like MBA babble or jargon. 5, can they manage transformation? Change management is a major aspect in any implementation, and project failure is a certainty if your people don't adopt the solution because it seems foreign to them, if they don't see the connection to their work, or if it doesn't seem to fit or let alone improve their processes. The advisor you choose should recognize the importance of this piece of work, from envisioning the need for EPM right through to its implementation, training, handover and support. And then I suppose 7, the spirit of goodwill. The best consultants are those who don't have to turn on a meter every time they advise you. Signs of goodwill, at least in my mind, should be evident, where the expert goes that extra mile to make sure the customer, you, are comfortable with your new surroundings and able to take advantage of all that EPPM has to offer. Okay, let's look at some of the critical success factors for deploying your solution. How do you ensure that your project will start out positioned for success? Let's say you've gone through the RFP process, you've completed the vendor evaluation, and you've decided on the technology. Before diving into the requirements and design, you need to spend some time in the project initiation phase, ensuring the project's critical success factors are defined and socialized, and that a plan for implementation is developed. Be sure that there is a common understanding of the importance of the CSFs and how they differ from project objectives and success criteria. Like the old computer science maxim, garbage in, garbage out, the usefulness and success of your solution and deployment will only be as good as the time and effort you spend in setting it up and adding good data. To have any sort of success with an EPPM rollout, ensure that you have top to bottom, left to right commitment from business stakeholders to feed good information into the system regularly. Policies and procedures need to be put into place that will maximize the importance of entering accurate data in a timely manner into the system, and the executive suite should be visible and responsible for both implementing these procedures as well as adjusting them as business reviews warrant. Now, based on sort of past experiences of deployment challenges, I'd like to sort of call out a few critical CSFs that I think are worth sort of being sort of really aware of, and I've listed them here on the slide. So in terms of business focus, what I mean by that is just ensure that you have clear alignment with the overall business strategy and the goals. Capture the requirements for the future, not just for today. In terms of technology focus, build a solution that works with the business processes, that does not enforce complexity where not needed, and is performance specifically on high volume tasks. But Be wary of making software the focal point and regarding this as an IT implementation. For those of us in the technology business, we're most guilty of this, and really, most of us should know better. Yet somehow the temptation to believe that the availability of technology means the problem is resolved is hard to resist. In terms of change management, ensure you provide visible senior management ownership and commitment. Each business process should have a clear owner responsible for adoption. 5, process focus. Align processes to the maturity and capability of the organization, ensuring they are practical and adaptable and are fitted to the business needs and add value to all participants. Make sure you develop clear and complete business goals, requirements, and usage scenarios. Having clear requirements and realistic expectations of the benefits to be derived from the adoption of a EPPM solution should help sell the initiative to the organization. And also, if there are no clearly defined requirements and objectives, then the perceived success of the initiative may be open to interpretation. Then allow sufficient upfront time. Fail to plan and plan to fail. I know it's a bit cliched, but anyone with project experience will tell you that getting ready is the secret to success. Try to avoid being railroaded into an implementation before the groundwork has been done. Make a realistic schedule. 8, embedded PMO structure. There needs to be a recognized expertise in all areas of processes, tools, and data, providing day-to-day, at-elbow support, resourced to manage peaks as well as troughs and help user groups realize specific benefits aligned to functional roles. Now, I know this was sort of a critical success factor, but I did want to sort of call it out on a separate slide, just because I regard it as that's important. Companies are making strides to change. They have to. Technology is evolving, and it's time to implement, adapt, or be left behind. And changes include transitioning from on-prem to cloud technologies, integrating social and mobile capabilities, and implementing ways to manage big data and deliver analytics, all of which are forcing businesses to change the way they work. Now, from a technology standpoint, it's a lot to manage, and we haven't even mentioned people yet. As the systems employees use every day begin to change, user perspectives and habits must change as well. And the truth is, change can be difficult. When organizations decide to embark on these significant changes, whether it be a process, work environment, or technology, the people involved and their subsequent reactions are often the last to be considered. And this oversight is perplexing, given that the people will need to perform in the new environment, use the new technology, make critical decisions, and at the same time try to maintain or improve the quality of the operation already in place. When new technology implementations fail, it's usually less about the chosen technology and more about a lack of true business readiness, including how well the people were prepared, managed, and supported through the changes associated with implementing and using it. When this occurs, the benefits that should be realized are undermined or even sabotaged by a lack of adoption in the user community. Best practices insist that organizational change management is a change curve to be managed. Implementing technology isn't just about training users to get them up to speed. It's about planning, communication, executive sponsorship, and discipline. However, more often than not, the assumption is made that roadblocks in users' adoption or technology success is due to a lack of knowledge or skills, thereby requiring more training. But, that's not always the case. In technology-based change, the adoption of new tools, solutions, and related processes is a broad and potentially expensive symptom of what might be a more straightforward problem. Declaring that users aren't well trained infers that a lack of knowledge or skills is the direct and only contributor to low adoption. However, the actual problem could be one of many, and then to thwart potentially, unnecessary and excessive training costs. Keep these two items in mind when adopting new technology, solutions, and processes. 1. Sponsorship. 2. Discipline. In terms of sponsorship, to effect change, particularly in large technology-based organizations, efforts need an executive sponsor. Simple as that. Leadership endorsement is needed to demonstrate the support of the tool and encourage timely and effective participation within the new solution. Without demonstrated support or direction, it's easy for team members to find other priorities instead of taking the time to explore and use a new tool. And then in regards to discipline, with a communicative executive sponsor in place, it then comes down to discipline, and that falls to everyone in the organization. And the truth is, it's not easy. Discipline or lack thereof reflects a deeply rooted culture that takes time and commitment to improve. However, without support and discipline, new technologies, solutions, and related processes may as well fall to the wayside. It's much easier for teams and people within an organization to participate if they know that others are too. And that's just because behavior can be contagious, particularly if the benefits of a new tool are known. Again, this ties back to good sponsorship and communication. It's another chance for leaders to express the desired focus and behaviors within the environment in question. If an end user knows how a new technology and their participation in using the tool impacts the bottom line, they'll be more likely to invest the time and discipline needed to reach the desired outcomes from the change. Okay. We're in the home stretch now. So, configuring your solution. When seeking to implement enterprise project management tools, it's valuable to note that deployment timelines aren't usually driven by the speed at which the technology can be deployed, but rather by the rate at which the supporting business processes can be implemented and the solution adopted by the end user. End user adoption is absolutely key to deriving value from any investment in management tools. Success in end user adoption is driven in several ways: through delivery of meaningful communication and appropriate training, through active engagement with users to assess their attitudes, identify and understand process gaps, and through governance practices that are in step with the changes to data capture and reporting through the new tool technology. Now, the key to easing adoption is leveraging a phased iterative design and build process to release functionality incrementally and in line with the process definition and people upskilling. This approach reduces transitional risk since each iteration presents an incremental step in the organization's maturity. So basically, crawl, walk, run. Simultaneous releases of multiple new functions would require an immense training and learning period, reducing end-user productivity and increasing risk of frustration as well as change resistance. Deploying functionality appropriate to your current maturity and then incrementally improving the tool capability in line with process enhancement creates a perception for the end user of having less downtime. This approach allows you to respond to changes in the environment and provides a much greater chance of successful adoption. Now, if I've made you think twice about doing a EPPM deployment, that's probably not a bad thing. It does require a bit of thought. Not that you should not do it, but it just requires a little bit of extra thinking. And based on sort of experience, I'd probably make the following recommendations to ensure that you get the most out of your first implementation. Point one would be make sure that you engage a deployment partner. Don't try and go it on your own. Two, one of the things that I would advise you to do very early on is just define who is your enterprise. That could mean whatever you decide it to mean, I suppose. Is it your department? Is it your division? Is it your entire company? Just be aware that one common mistake made by people doing a deployment is making a plan for an entire company but only having authority over their own division. The hope is that others will come on board if the system is available. It's a variant on the field of dreams approach, and it makes for a solution that's not attractive to those other divisions and not useful for the ones who you do have authority over. So decide early on who will be involved and make sure they're included in the planning. 3, just make sure you treat it as a project. Sounds pretty simple, but just use all the skills you already have for managing projects to manage the Microsoft EPPM deployment. Remember, it's primarily a change management project, not a technology project. 4, just try and keep it simple and leverage an iterative design and build process to release functionality incrementally. 5, I'd say use standard EPPM best practices and tools to manage your schedules, your tasks, your issues, your resource assignments. 6, provide visibility to project status in order to make better decisions. 7, leverage standard processes to realize the benefits. 9, change management should underpin all activities. And if you're designing a deployment that follows a phased approach and uses basic project management methodologies that you already have for other projects, then you're probably standing a pretty good chance of success. So what happens once you've gone and you've deployed it? Well, I suppose over the years, one of the biggest pitfalls I've seen to the selection and deployment of these tools is people thinking about them as fulfilling a static purpose. It's possible that this is just a sign of our times as we attempt to sound bite everything in our world by making it shorter. I.e., it manages our projects, or it's our timesheeting solution, or it's our ERP system. Now, I suppose, the organizations I've encountered which have been the most successful at deploying an enterprise project and enterprise timesheet solution, think of them as living systems. A system which is continually evolving by design. These solutions should grow, they should evolve and adapt to the changing conditions around them. One of the biggest challenges faced when starting an EPM deployment is establishing a credible roadmap for producing the intended result. While I have deployed EPPM systems for several years, one thing that hasn't changed is the desire of management to have all the results yesterday. However, as we've already discussed, to reduce risk and the success of adoption, use a iterative deployment approach. Now, the problem with that, though, is that to do this requires a roadmap. Since if you do not know where you are going, how are you going to get there? Thus, before determining the scope for further implementation phases, I would recommend you build out an overall roadmap to further improve organization performance by developing core areas and defining a desired future state, which will help to identify areas for improvement. I suppose, a deployment's kind of like any journey. A direction requires two things, a destination and a point of origin. When we apply this analogy to a EPPM deployment, we have to think in sort of similar terms. One, a point of origin defined in technology, processes and personal terms. 2, a destination defined in business terms and prioritized. Typically, you define some way stations or interim stops where you can regroup and replenish your supplies for the next leg of the voyage. And these are phases and the underlying releases within each phase. Our consulting staff are taught to identify not the most, but the least that we can do in a initial deployment. We tell them to look for the most minimal deployment, the deploying of which will produce an ongoing positive return on investment. The great news about this is that the value from the system will start much more quickly, and in the use of the system, even more detail will come out earlier on, and the requirements for future use will become clearer. This is only one of several things you can do in order to avoid being stuck in a static deployment paradigm. Some other kind of key considerations are listed on the slide. Make a budget that allows for evolution. One challenge I've seen in many deployments is the one visit to the well sort of thinking, where a request for an enterprise system can be made only one time. Making a phased budget instead with the expectation that the first couple of phase budgets are quite detailed, but future phases are less so, is inevitably more successful. The next one is support your solution with a governance plan and counsel. Once your solution is live, there are going to be several changes and enhancements and removal of features that will come up. And unless you set a standard on how these changes are performed, you can rest assured that your sort of entire solution will just be in complete chaos down the road. If you do not take the time to plan, design and execute a governance process around the management of your solution, you can rest assured that the solution will get filled with stale data, bad design decisions and changes, and processes that are out of sync with the actual organization. And please don't make the mistake of thinking our IT guys can handle this. I've seen many good implementations fail because the IT staff are just not experienced or equipped enough to provide the support for an EPPM tool suite. Delegating such important forward-looking tools to IT and expecting them to just work is frankly pretty short-sighted and will not result in an effective EPPM deployment. When you start considering that governance plan, you need to think about the areas that you want to govern. And there's loads of theories and models for establishing a governance plan for enterprise solutions, and you're free to choose the one that best fits your organization. But the simplest way to figure out the areas of governance needed is to consider the areas where changes are likely to happen, and then set up a governance plan for managing these changes. And the plan doesn't need to be complex. And it doesn't need to be a tome with lots of obscure terminology and language that no one can use in daily life. It can just be a simple Excel spreadsheet with quick answers to the key questions. And understand that your governance of your solution is a constantly evolving process. It's important not to get hung up with paralysis or analysis. Start small, deliver value, and then just scale it up. Make a permanent enhancement team. The team that assembles the requirements for the solution will be looking at business processes, system functionality, integration, and other key requirements. Having these people abandon the system once it's installed makes future evolution very challenging. Don't abandon all of your implementation team when you go operational. Try and keep 1 or 2 key resources going forward, at least on an ad hoc basis. This is a extremely common challenge. Often in these deployments, the organization is drawn to assigning its most experienced and skilled folk to the project. However, those resources are the very ones who will be needed on the next critical project, and they are likely to be pulled off. Planning in advance to have certain key resources stay with the implementation for a longer period can make an enormous difference. And as I mentioned earlier, if you can get your system into production early, this is so much easier in today's world than it was 5-6 years ago. You can take advantage of cloud-based installations and get up and running in minutes. Most enterprise systems which have cloud and on-prem offerings have methods of evolving from one to the other. This is certainly true with Project Online. Learn from actual use. That's a key one. Ensure there is a feedback loop that results in a system enhancement. Some implementation teams discourage suggestions for improvement, concerned they will keep people from using the system they've already deployed. My experience tells me that those who make suggestions for improvements are typically the biggest allies of the system. Even if an idea can't be implemented right away, it should be welcomed. creating a system for identifying and encouraging new ideas for the solution keeps everyone invested and can bring enormous benefits. I suppose to summarize the entire presentation, EPPM goes far beyond technology, and software is not just a magic bullet that will instantly give you results. It's a tool and one of many on the path to great results. But just as obesity can't be cured with a simple pill, obtaining an overall picture of the status and deliverables of your major projects and initiatives can't be completed with the installation of one system. It isn't cart before the horse. You can't build a solution and think people will come. Success with EPPM is more a function of how you're going to manage the performance of people using the system than it has anything to do with the software. Getting status updates and resource information into the system is a process, and finding the right personnel and rhythm to keeping it updated is also a procedure that must be implemented. So, is your organization planning to implement an EPM or PPM solution this year? I'd love to hear about it. Please do feel free to drop us a note or give us a call. Thank you very much for attending the session. Goodbye.